Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show, and back by popular demand, another exciting guest. We got back in studio Stefani Skilton, and if you watch part one, she really opened up a whole bunch of valuable information, and now she's back with part two. So we're going to take it off from part two and get into the second book that she wrote, but we're going to spin it off from right here. We talked about, first of all, let me say thank you, Steph, for coming back on the show. How you been doing since the first episode?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy doing your show.
Before we get started with this episode, let's recap a little bit. Tell the viewers a little bit about you. We know you have a podcast. Tell the viewers a little bit about you in the podcast.
My podcast is called Quantum Coffee, and I talk with my friend, Dr. Nicole, who is a psychologist. And so Reverend Stefani and Dr. Nicole is the premise of Quantum Coffee, and we talk about energy and psychology and how they work together in the different languages and getting through the hard stuff. But we talk about it. We laugh the whole time because we just make each other laugh. So it's a very fun, light-hearted podcast about hard things to talk about.
I like that. Now, let's go here. You shared a lot of information in part one, and we're not going to go back into part one. If you guys want to know what we talked about, download it, go to YouTube, go to Rumble, go to Roku, go to Fire Television, or go to the IMB radio and listen to it. So let's go here. We left off with something that is a big part of your lifestyle now, and that's your daughter and living with celiac disease. Before we go there, what exactly is that, and how does that come into your universe?
Okay, yeah. So celiac disease is she doesn't process gluten and certain wheat products. So what happens is it just passes through the body. But when you're eating food with gluten in it, whatever meal, it doesn't matter if you're eating bread, but then you have all meat and vegetables and other stuff with it, nothing in that meal gets absorbed into your body. So it just passes right through. The gluten blocks anything from being absorbed into your body. And it's really difficult to live with it because you have to watch what you're eating constantly or stay home. She stayed home for a long time before she was officially diagnosed because she was scared of having to go to the bathroom and, being out and not knowing what would stay in her body. The real dangerous part about it is because yes, there's an embarrassing clause, right? But because nothing stays in your body and you're not absorbing it, you can die from malnutrition, even though you're eating. So your body's not getting any vitamins, any minerals, any nutrition at all when you don't know you have it. And it's so interesting that we're starting here today because I was just listening to information on celiac disease this morning and how other people and other podcasts, and I was one of these people that was like, wow, why is this a new phenomenon? Why is it happening? What did they do to our food that all of a sudden everyone has celiac disease? And what this doctor was saying is that celiac disease has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And there's proof that, people back in the dark ages had celiac disease. However, we didn't have a name for it. We didn't know what it was. So it wasn't until, 3 decades ago that we actually understood why some people were dying of malnutrition, even though they were eating. So that I found very fascinating, is that it's not a new trendy disease like we think. It's just that the science has caught up to certain people's diseases that they have. They've been able to identify it and give it a name. And that to me was fascinating. And I was just listening to it this morning.
When you talk about something of this nature, you're also talking about the body not being able to absorb nutrients from food, which can also cause catabolic syndrome, which is the destruction of muscle tissue. But let's go deeper. When she was diagnosed, I would think, and I'm not a doctor, but I would think that she would probably have to be prescribed infusions pretty much to make sure she get proper vitamins and minerals and things that she needs to keep her body from breaking down. It's even more so her autoimmune system. So what was the what what was the um what was the diagnosis, the treatment for it?
Well, that's really interesting. So, fortunately for my daughter, and this is where I say I was one of those people who thought it was just trendy. When she was young, a baby until she was maybe 15, um, I was part of the CrossFit and the paleo world. So she was raised gluten free without having a diagnosis. So she had what I considered a very healthy lifestyle. And in the past almost decade, I fell off of the paleo train, and the whole family did really, because we lived that way. Her aunts, her uncles, her grandparents, we were all part of this community, and not for any reason other than life gets in the way and you kind of move in different directions. And now all of a sudden you're like, why can't I eat that pizza? Why was I going so hard? Well, so it's only been in the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years that she's actually been eating a standard American diet, where things are filled with gluten. But because we had such a strong nutritious background, we were able to, okay, stay away from this, stay away from this, do some eliminations. And she had been going and trying to so she wasn't at the point where she was malnutrition and wasn't getting the things, because we had already kind of had a baseline for celiac, even though she didn't have the official diagnosis. She was never sick as a kid because we never had gluten in the house. She did have an uncle who was celiac her entire life. So every time, the family would get over, it was come over. It was just, we're not going to have this in the house. Um, so when she was like 7 years old, she told me she wanted to open up a gluten-free bakery when she was older. And she was not diagnosed. She wasn't diagnosed until she was 21. So the reason why I say all of that is because there was no real treatment from doctors. She didn't have medicine. She did have antibiotics because one of the diagnoses she got on the journey was salmonella. So that's really the only medicine or treatment that she had that had to do with food, was she had salmonella poisoning. So she got antibiotics. But other than that, I know about nutrition. And so we were able to work together. And I think it only got really bad for about 2 years. But again, she was really paying attention to everything she put into her mouth. And I think it was about 8 months before she officially got diagnosed that I said, you probably have celiac. And then she officially got diagnosed. And so she's much better now. She just went back to essentially the way she grew up eating. And we found a gluten-free bakery across the street from her apartment, which she didn't even know was there.
What was her probiotic level in her gut? What was her gut health like?
That's really interesting that you ask. So I actually am very aware of gut health. And that was one of the things that I really said, Har, you got to eat your sauerkraut, you got to eat yogurt, you got to get the probiotics. Me and my husband bought her probiotics. So even with having a good gut supported system, I make my own sauerkraut and I make my own yogurt with good bacteria. So we're very educated in that. And even with that really good probiotic gut bacteria, she still cannot eat gluten. It still will just wreak havoc on her body. So she does the probiotics. She's now on the sauerkraut, a little bit of sauerkraut every day. The I can never say this word, but it's like the rutamine strand of bacteria that I put and make the yogurt. So her gut bacteria is really, really healthy, actually, but it does not get rid of celiac, which for a long time, really thought we can fix this with healing your gut and giving you a big dose of vitamin C and really healing and balancing all of those systems in your body. But for celiac, if you're truly celiac and not just sensitive, because I feel like if some people are sensitive, they can balance out their system with having a really good microbiome in your gut. But for her,
Sounds like
go ahead.
sounds like she also has a combination, or that the celiac also puts into effect what appears to be almost Crohn's.
We have, yeah, and we have gone into that direction to see if that was the problem. That was one of the things that, you know, they tested for or were checking on and monitoring. But as of right now, she has an official celiac disease, and she makes sure she doesn't eat too much fiber. She makes sure that her um, bacteria is good in her gut. She doesn't eat gluten. So she's got a really good diet. And if she stays on that and is conscious and aware of making sure she's eating healthy, clean food, she's fine. But that Crohn's disease was definitely one of the things on the list that we pay attention to see if it goes there.
Okay, now let's get into the deeper part of part two. Let's talk about stabilization and how do I want to put this? Action oriented structure.
Mm,
And this has a lot to do with your second book, which has to do with energy, frequency, and chakra education. So tell the viewers a little bit about the book, how it came about, and what's its purpose, and why should we understand that energy frequency in our bodies?
yeah, I love that what you said, action oriented, because that is where I live in action. Um, so it came about because I was struggling with my own inner world, my own environment, my own happiness versus depression, my own inner world dictating my exterior world. And I had gone to therapists, and I had gone to and done all the traditional things, and they just kept reiterating what was wrong with me. I was in Codependence Anonymous for 2 years, and it was the same, I'm codependent, I'm codependent. And you were just programming your brain to continue to say that thing and continue to believe that thing. And so it wasn't in my mind, body, and soul, it wasn't enough. And it wasn't getting me to the next level. And I wasn't establishing freedom, which is where I wanted to go. I wanted to be free from my own internal beast. And none of this reiteration of the same thing over and over again was getting me there. It wasn't pushing me anywhere. And so I started listening to the body and the frequency and my own energy, and having that ability since birth. It I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was at least a tool. It was an area of something that I knew I could use to help me. It was like, okay, I have all of this knowledge and experience with energy. Why aren't I using it for myself? Why aren't I doing that for myself? And so I started to put my hand, and I had been at this point a Reiki master already for 30 years, but I wasn't using it for myself. So how the book actually started is I started doing Reiki on myself, on my heart specifically. And every night when I would go to bed, because I had spent most of my life treating everybody else, let me give you Reiki, let me put my hands over here, let me love you, let me do this externally. And so one night I was just like, I was at rock bottom, and I just put my hands on my own heart, and I just repeated, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And I did that for 6 months every single night before all of a sudden a light bulb went off. And I realized the environment that I was living in, because at that time and I told you this in the first episode, I was in the worst relationship of my life. It was physically abusive, emotionally manipulative. I mean, it was just bad. I had gone down, 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 down. And so after 6 months of I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, I finally saw essentially the way out. I saw my freedom from that experience. And I was able to gain the strength by doing this internal energy work to leave that situation and to literally see the helpers in my world, where before it was like, I'm alone, I have no help, my family's not here, my friends aren't here, I'm by myself, which wasn't the case. I was just blinded by my own fear. But once I started to open up my heart, the fear went away and I saw support that I had never seen before. And so once I got that support, I left my own house for a month so that this man could leave my house, and the energy would just be gone and I wouldn't have to see or deal with him or deal with that back and forth. I was had so much support that I had somebody say, "Come stay with me across the country and I'll keep you safe while that person leaves." And so I finally started to see what was around me. And from that moment, I started to do what I had always been trained to do, but to myself. And that's when I realized that the psychology and the energy work and all the things I learned becoming a yoga instructor and all the things that I learned as becoming an interfaith minister all worked together. And if I could put language behind the energy inside of your body, the chakras and the psychology and the magic that's happening when you're clearing the system and what happens to the mind, that was my action. That was me doing. That was me showing the world, like, yes, you can have situations, trauma, experience, but once you clear the energy, you can see new experiences. You can see new situations. I don't know if I talked about this in the last one, but what started to happen when I was on my own journey, you get on these loops of, your childhood and your trauma. And this is what I remember. And I remember always being so angry and hating the world and depressed. And as I was doing this and writing chakras and shadow work and going through it, I started to have new memories. And I started to remember times when I was in junior high, elementary school, laughing and having fun with my friends, where I had none of those memories before. I was just looping all of the bad times and all of the darkness. And so I feel I literally changed my history because I'm no longer looping and holding on to the darkness. Now I can see the gifts and the light and the things that went good in my life. And I'm so grateful to have been able to put that in action and do the energy work and move that trauma out of my body. And now I have a whole new experience and a whole new look on life.
Okay. Wow. So now I'm going to ask some questions, and thank you for sharing that information because that's a pretty good story. But let me go here with these questions. You I got several questions. I'm gonna start with my first one. When you're caught in this cycle, you touched on something that I think people need to go back and understand. And you go to therapy, and I get it, but not to all therapists, but to me, therapy with some therapists is a comfort zone to constantly hash over what you've done over and over and over again. I call that the loop.
Yeah.
You break the loop when you bring another form of energy in, which is work on yourself. What are these things that seems to be blocking you from getting out of it? Let's go deeper with this. I might get to the question. You kept going to these places. I kept saying, you are this, you are this. Self validation of what you don't want anymore. It's almost like telling an alcoholic who goes to AA, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. Eventually you're gonna be an alcoholic, whether you're going to treatment or not.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? The situation is I don't want to be that. That being an alcoholic is putting me here, but you're telling me with my steps, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I will open up, I'm an alcoholic, thank you, gentlemen, because that's not who I am. So it goes back to what you were saying. I think that would be one of the tools in your book. Don't accept what you are that somebody's put on you that you're going to get treatment for, or should we call it what you're in the loop for? So when you started to bring your own, harnessing your own energy by putting your hand over your heart and repeating or manifesting the same things in words. I always tell people words are powerful. And you started to embrace who you are. You was in fear because you saw nobody around, but technically there were people around. So my question here is, who was around that you thought wouldn't, that wasn't even there, but you were so blind that you go, wow, you there, you're there, you there. Who were those people, and which one really made the most difference in helping you get to the next level?
When we get to the next level, that's a good question. So, yeah, there's so many answers in that question. I want to say that holding on to an identity is not who you are. It's just an identity that you feel comfortable with and you're like, "Okay, I got this." And that was where I started. I have the awareness of where I how I got here and what you're identifying me as or classifying me as or categorizing me as, but I'm better than that. And I don't want to stay here. So just like you said. So once I started to, feel myself, and I had to not accept the labels. And what I call it in my book is the deconstruction of identity. And it's the first thing that you do. You write all of your labels: sister, mom, daughter, friend, lover, whatever it is, you write all of your labels. And then you ask yourself, why do I believe that to be me? Where did I get that label from? Did I get it from birth? Did I get it from an experience? Did I get it because somebody said, "Oh my God, you're so funny," and I held on to that? Why am I holding on to all of those little identifications? So that's the first step in my book, is the deconstruction of your identity. Now, I want to answer your question by telling you a story that demonstrates how I was blind to the help and then how I saw the help. The first time the relationship that I was in got physically abusive, I called my friend, and he was in Georgia. Well, he's still in Georgia, and I'm in Arizona. And I called him because I didn't want anyone in my family to know what had happened. But I wanted to reach out to somebody. I needed to talk to somebody. And I thought, not, realizing internet and phones, but I thought if I called somebody in Georgia, nobody in Arizona would know about it. Well, as soon as I got off the phone with him, he called my sister. He called my parents, and he told everyone what had happened. But at that moment, I felt betrayed by him. I felt like he did something against me because I didn't want my family to know. I could not see that he was helping me. I could not see that anyone was helping me. To me, it felt like in that moment, I was being betrayed because I confided in him in a horrible situation. And he was trying to get me out of the situation. He even went so far as calling the Goodyear police in Arizona the next time it happened from Georgia. And I still viewed it, I was so sick and I was so blind to my own world and my own life that I still viewed it as betrayal. And I stopped talking to him until I started to love myself. And 2 years later, maybe 18 months later, I'm not really sure. I think it was 2.5 years later, actually, now that I just put the years together. I called him and I said, because I've known him since I was 9 years old. So he was my neighborhood friend. And I called him, and the words that I used were as if we still live next door to each other. And I said, "Can I come over?" And I'm in Arizona and he's in Georgia. And he knew immediately that I finally was ready to get out of hell. And he said, "Absolutely." And he bought me a ticket and he flew me out, and I stayed with him for a month. And it was that moment where I realized, oh my God, because I couldn't feel love, right? I couldn't feel love in my own heart because I didn't love myself, because I was so hurt from my trauma in the world that happened to me before this, and I was downward spiraling and I couldn't feel anything. My body was numb. So everything I saw in the exterior was something that was happening against me. Nothing was happening for me because I was in that loop. I was sick and codependent and, in bad relationships. And I had all of these labels just, you're this, you're this, you're this. So I couldn't see help. I could only see betrayal because that was the loop until I started to love myself. And I know it sounds really simple, but it was so extremely profound. And once I felt that love in my heart, I could see the love that other people were trying to give me. But before
Mm.
that moment, I couldn't see it.
It's funny that you say that because I have people that I know that are still in the loop. I'm gonna use an example. I had a friend that reached out to a friend, and he told his friend, "I don't keep my text messages." And the other person was like, "Well, that's because you might have had infidelity, that you cheated and all this." And my friend looked at me. He said, "Man, what's her problem?" And I said, "Dude, that's called the loop."
Mhm.
That person had so much trauma that they've conditioned themselves through social media to think because you don't keep your text messages that you're labeled in their book. It don't mean you're labeled in everybody's book, but that's how she sees the loop playing in her head. And you may not be able to break that loop. So good thing you're on here, because let's talk about how do you break that loop. But let's go back so I can make all this tie up together. And that's a simple loop, so to speak, but it's also tragic because now you base your fears on text messaging, and that means you have to start invading your relationship, if that makes sense, on what
Yeah.
your mate is doing now.
Mhm.
So let's go even deeper here. What exactly is Reiki? And I'm gonna tell you, then I'm gonna bring my question in.
Okay.
No, I want you to tell me what Reiki is.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Okay.
Yeah, then I'm gonna tell you my question.
Okay. So Reiki is basically reaching into the energy around us, the quantum field, the toroidal field, the Taurus man. It is reaching into, we have layers. Okay. We not only the chakras that run through our body and the Kundalini DNA strand that runs up our spine and the blue flame. And you can see, Google pictures of all of these things and there'll be these magnificent energy systems. But we also have layers, which some people call the aura. And it's the physical layer, the emotional layer, the spiritual layer, wisdom and bliss layer of your bodies. And outside of that, so that's the aura. We feel this. Outside of that is the Taurus field, which kind of does this, but it's not 3 dimensions. It's not 2 dimensions. As far as I can see so far, there's 13 dimensions. And we're talking like very complicated energy systems moving around all of us. And then we have these higher systems above us. Now, what Reiki is it pulls that in. It goes up to one of the highest sources of energy. So, whatever you want to call it, God, source, universal light, it goes to that highest source of pure healing energy and it pulls it down into the body. And it goes and it finds the source. So when I'm doing Reiki on somebody, I can see the body have black spots or gray spots. It's the only thing I've seen so far. Black means that there is disease. So, for example, I saw somebody with he had torn his ACL, and so his whole knee was black, or wherever the freaking it was just black, but it wasn't dead. It just means it was diseased or broken, or there's the energy is not getting there. So I put my hands on there and I feed it energy, almost if you're overdosing it with vitamin C. And before I went to his house, he was convinced, his doctors were convinced that he had to get surgery. He called because this was a guy that my husband was doing work for. My husband's a woodworker. So he was just doing work for this rich guy and having a conversation with my husband. And didn't believe in this stuff. My husband was like, you got to have my wife. Anyway, I went over there, did the energy work. 2 weeks later, he called my husband. He said, I'm not getting surgery and I feel fine. I'm going out on the bike again. Sometimes the energy looks gray. And when it's gray, believe it or not, that's actually worse than black. It means there's no energy getting to that system at all. And there was one time where I saw a man's energy from the waist down was completely dead. It was gray. There was no energy happening. He was not in a wheelchair, but it looked almost as if there's no energy here. How are you even walking? And I had to like go into the spine, the bottom of the spine, and just start feeding his legs energy so that it would wake up. And he had actually had a spine injury at the base of his spine that I did not know about, and so he thought he was also going to have surgery, and I didn't know that at the time. And he was canceling trips and doing all these things, but he was walking. He was just walking with pain constantly. And once I did that, he hasn't. He's hasn't had back pain in 3 or 4 years since that happened, and his leg, everything functions. um so essentially Reiki is bringing in the energy that's all around us and getting it right to the source of whatever is going on. And it doesn't have to be physical, it can be emotional, and there's a lot of brain activity and there's a lot of emotional chemicals that run through the nervous system that I can see because I have 3D glasses.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question: how do you know a true Reiki healer? And I'm gonna go here with this. 4 years ago, that's the first time I really had heard of it. And this lady said, I'm not gonna give her name. She says, I'm a Reiki healer. I said, okay, what is this? She kind of shared the same thing. But to my demise, what she was performing was not Reiki healing. It was seduction at its highest level. And then I meet other people along because when you open up Pandora's box, all kind of shit starts to unfold. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, this lady is doing this type of Reiki healing, so to speak, and you're saying this and so forth. Then I got to thinking, there is all kind of different energy frequencies.
Hmm.
This lady that was performing these erotic Reiki performance, almost like it was like a satanic ritual with what she was showing and telling me.
Yeah.
How is that? Is that even considered Reiki healing? Because it looked more sexual, demonic than it did bring in the positive energy in. What's your take on that?
I love that question. And that right there is why I spent so many years in the closet and hiding from my own world, my own existence, my own community, because I see people like that. And we all see people like that taking advantage of and creating victims in the world. Uh, there are people who, whether they intend to manipulate, whether they even have clarity that they're manipulating, um, they might not even know they don't have the best intentions. But what I can tell you, and how I would like everyone to hear this, is the way you're going to know somebody has the best intentions is they are not going to lead you blindly. If you came to me for Reiki, I would have a conversation with you. And then I would tell you exactly what I'm going to do before I do it. As I'm doing it, I'm going to tell you, this is where I see stuck energy. This is where I see blocks. Would you like me to continue? Would you like me to continue? So there is clear, open, honest communication, because you're giving me permission to manipulate your energy. I mean, let's call it what it is. But there's lots of manipulation in the world. I mean, therapists are trying to manipulate your emotions so that you feel good. Doctors are trying to manipulate your system so that you heal also. So manipulation is also one of those words that is misused. Um, but it is me going into your energy and changing it and trying to manipulate it so that it gets healthier, so that you become whole and you have as much light and energy running through your body as possible. And I would say, if they're not having that conversation with you, if they're not explaining every step of the way, if they're not saying, so I just got done with a breathwork detox training so that I could do that in my practice also. And one of the things the creator of this program talked about is sometimes when people do the breath work, they actually feel horny. They get horny feelings, but it wasn't a secret, and it wasn't manipulative, and it wasn't like, hey, let's capitalize on this energy fuel that's running through your body. It was like, yes, you may experience these feelings. It's fine. It's uh normal, it's natural. Nobody's going to take advantage of you because all of a sudden you have this energy from your sacral and your root running up to your crown. So those conversations, you're fully aware, you're never in the dark. If someone is just saying, let me fix you, let me do this, and you don't actually know what they're going to do, or ask questions, always ask questions. Also, I've had this a million times where there's just a really good salesman, and they're really good at selling their spiritual practices, at selling their energy work. And so clients come back to me and they say, Stephanie, I went to somebody who said they could do X, Y, and Z, and that there's demons attached to me, and there's all this, forces attached to me, and I need all this work done, and I have to do 1,700 Hail Marys and blah, 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 blah. And they want $10,000 for this one session. That breaks my heart. And it absolutely happens across the country. And it breaks my heart because they're so good at being salesmen that, there's evil in every single industry. There's evil Christians, there's evil Catholics, there's evil spiritualists, and there's really good ones. And there's really good lights. There's really good Christians and really good Catholics and really good spiritualists. You have to ask questions. You have to trust your body to go into this. And this is something, I'm going to say this because I was just teaching this week. If you feel resistance, if your body feels like all of a sudden it's pressing a rubber band and you're like, I don't know, it's not that, I'm feeling a little resistance, that is your internal body going, don't go that way. Don't use that person. There'll be others. There's more. You don't have to use that one. If your body is going, oh my God, I don't know why, I really like her, I want to go get treatment from her, go with that person. That's the person where your body is talking over your ego.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I'm going to ask this question. I could be right or wrong on this. I'm a firm believer that we all have that inner ability to be energy creators. So, my question here is, what would be, briefly, what would be at
Okay.
least three of the things that you would recommend for people to self teach themselves and enjoy the gifts like you did? And then if they need more, they become more enlightened to reach out to somebody like you, or to read your book. What would be three things to start that person on their own personal journey to avoid getting ripped off, and being attached to demons and all that kind of stuff to get more money?
I love that. And I will try to, I know I love to talk about this stuff. So I would say the three things are body, mind, and soul. You have to get your body, your mind, and your soul in alignment together. You have to learn to feel what is going on and have those conversations where you're observing the ego. When the ego comes in and is like, yeah, but I want, you can observe and have a conversation and go, listen to your body. Your body is saying no. So it is, somewhere earlier you asked me about, what comes first. And to me, it all comes at the same time. and it is body, mind, and soul. And so if you can start listening to those three things and really trusting yourself, that's the most important thing, is learn how to trust yourself. Now, that's not the easiest thing, but it is the most important thing. And I don't mean blindly trusting yourself. I don't mean stubbornly trusting yourself. I mean trusting your internal body and your internal wisdom and allowing yourself to make decisions and boundaries according to what feels good to you. So, not saying, well, somebody else wants me to X, Y, and Z. You have to trust yourself and your choices, your boundaries, and your energy.
How does a person know? And I'm going back to my buddy in the text message thing.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this in part one. How is it so difficult for people to not realize they're in a loop? What would be some of the things that people can look at their life, do what I call a self reflection or a self inventory, and go, you know what, I'm in a motherfucking loop.
Yeah. If they hear themselves saying things like everyone is, and then X, Y, and Z. If they hear themselves saying all men are X, Y, and Z, all women are X, Y, and Z, all Christians are X, Y, and Z, then you're in a fucking loop, because essentially that's all you're telling yourself you want to see, is that one archetype of person, that one archetype of experience. So if you are having the same experience over and over again with different faces, different genders, but it's still the same experience. It's not the world that is all just this one thing. It's your fucking world that is this one thing. It's your loop. You are recreating the same thing over and over again. Because I am not the same as that spiritualist over there. But you're choosing that one because that's the game you're playing with yourself. That's the energy, the bat signal you're saying to the world, all spiritualists are evil or demonic. And so that's all you're seeing. Your reticular activating system is literally honing in on the betrayal, on the deceit, on those people who behave in those manners, because that's what you're looping to yourself. So if you're getting
What
the
would-
same thing, if you're telling yourself the world is exactly the same, everyone's a liar and a cheat, it's you. It's not them.
when you find yourself doing that, we talked about the power of words, the spells of words, what you put in, what you take in, what you put out. So when somebody feels themselves going down that road, all men are like this, all women are like this, blah blah. What are some of the key phrases that they can use to change that software or that program to get back in that beast mindset? And people need to realize this is something you have to do. There's no time limit on when you're going to break that loop. You'll just know, because you clearly said it took you a while, but you will start seeing, I would assume, different manifestations of your life begin to change. And that this, I tell people, shake your tree. I shake my tree all the time. And people say, well, you're an Aquarius. You can just, no, it has to do with my horoscope sign. If you're not aligned with me, then I'm going to push you over there. It's not mean I'm going to get rid of you. I just know how to deal with you now. You're not getting access to this, but you're cool where you at. So my question here is, what are some of the words that people need to start implementing in this loop shift back into that beast mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it kind of depends on their belief system. So one of the things they can say is, God, please help me to see the world differently, and just keep saying that over and over again. They can look in the mirror and say, please help me, or I want to be better. I want to be different. I want a new experience. They can write things on the mirror about what level they want to see. One of the things that I did years and years and years ago is I actually wrote, like you said, the affirmations and the words. I wrote these words underneath a painting that I wrote them with Elmer's glue, like loyalty, trust, whatever it was, partnership, community. And I was still married to my first husband, but I didn't feel those things. And then I painted over it with a whole bunch of hearts. I finger painted it. But that was like, that's my spiritual, right? Because I need action. And then I just kind of leaned into, those are the things I'm looking for. Those are the things, even though I can't see it right now, you have to open. One thing I also tell people is, if you are in a loop, a relationship loop, there are 80-year-old couples out there who have been together forever, who are loyal, who are best friends, who are lovers. Look for them. Look for them out in the world. Tell them that they exist. Tell your brain that they exist. So, one of the things is you have to tell your brain this exists. Not all men, not all women. This actually exists, because then your reticular activating system opens up. The mirror neurons start to see those things and start to internalize it and go, I can do that too. So it's not just words, it's words in
Right.
action. And you have to
Right.
start believing it before you can know it. Once you know it, you've
Right.
gone over the threshold. You no longer believe it, you know it.
My last question. This can probably be the the nail on the coffin. Hollywood always tells you what's really going on in the world. Well, let me go here. We talk about energy and the importance of energy and the transformation of how you look at life, how you create your own life, how you get that beast mindset. But I think the crippling factor here is not so much the belief system that you come into the world with, but the people that surround you that can be energy drainers. What's your take on that? They say, let me go here. If I hang around murderers and thieves, I begin to become a murderer or thief or be associated with a murderer and thief. So let's go back to transitional energy. Their energy becomes your energy. What's your take on that?
Okay, I'm going to try and make it short, but man, I have so many stories.
You ain't
Um,
gonna make it short.
I know.
don't even go. Don't even go there.
Okay, so
But it's good though. Just tell the story. It's fine. People need to hear it.
I was one of those people that thought, I'm going to save everybody. So let me go hang out in the slums. Let me go hang out with the dark and the addicted, let me go, cuz I can save them. I can be better than them. And I didn't believe I was absorbing the energy. I didn't believe that I was at their level of energy. I didn't believe I was an addict because I wasn't taking substances, but I was addicted to addicts. So I absolutely had all the same life experiences, losing my house, losing my kids, losing money, that somebody who's taking substances, drinking, doing drugs, even though I wasn't doing all of those things, I was still experiencing all of those things because I was putting myself in that environment thinking I was this amazing savior, until I realized that is not how you save anyone. You don't do it by that. You go, if you want to go there, you show them the way, but you don't become one of them. You don't hang out with one of them. You say, look, I have this to offer you. It is up to you whether you come with me or not. So you have to change your mindset about who you are. Because another reason, it wasn't that I thought that I was had this God complex and was this amazing person. I remember the day I had a conversation with my husband, and I said to him, I've always put myself in rooms where I knew I was going to be the smartest. And it wasn't out of ego, it was out of insecurity, because I was so scared to go into rooms where there were smarter people than me and feel insignificant and feel less than. I didn't know how to, I could learn in school. You have a title, you're a professor, you've earned that. I can learn from you. But just to go into a room with peers that were smarter than me or doing better than me, my insecurity ego wouldn't allow me to do that. And I remember how, when I said that to him, it was like I was hearing it for the first time, but I knew it was true. I knew that I was intentionally going into places where I was the smartest person so that I could feel good about myself. I could feel like the savior. I could walk away going, oh my God, aren't I just amazing? When really inside, I felt like a piece of shit and I felt down and in the dumps and not good enough, right? So you have to hear where your truth is. And that's the part of trusting yourself. You have to really be honest with who you are. Why are you actually doing it? Yes, part of you thinks that you can save them, of course, and you have this open heart and you're bleeding, but why are you doing it that way? Why do you think you have to live among them in order to help them? Why do you think you have to do the substances in order to help them? Why do you think you have to be an addict in order to help them? Why do you think you have to be the smartest one in the room? So there's always two sides to everything that we're doing. good, bad, black, white, male, female. We live in a world of duality. And so you have to be strong enough, committed enough to your own growth and journey to say, what's the other side of this? Why am I doing this also? You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to be strong and committed to yourself in order to see the other side. Because you can tell yourself all day long, it's because I love them. It's because I want to help them. It's because they need X, Y, and Z also, blah, 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 blah. But really, what else is it? What else is it? So that's where the awareness part has to come in before you can disrupt it.
My last question here is a thinker. When we talk about such words as quantum realm and duality, I think we're missing out the big factor here. And it was a word that surfaced that I put into motion 4 years ago. We leaving out the human factor. And the human factor is there's good and there's evil. In some instance, good can't exist without the presence of evil. So to go back to what you were saying, you can't help everybody because you have the one word that stands in the way of that whole um, um, concept, and that's free will.
Mm-hmm.
And free will doesn't gives the person the ability to use their energy in all kind of ways, which means a lot of times the dark energy will take over the light energy, and all your quest to over trump that may be giving away a lot of your powers to what we might call a worthless cause. I won't say worthless. It's not the time for that individual to receive that until they get self help within themselves. I'm going to use this as an example before I close out. We have a lot of people that say, Dre, can you produce a show for me? Can you produce a podcast? My first instinct is, why am I listening to you? And they usually say, well, I want to help somebody. Okay, so my job is to sit there and listen to it. But if you're still in the loop, like we talked about, how are you really ready to help somebody with positive energy if you haven't really helped yourself? So my last question with that is, what's your take on the loop and the free will? And more importantly, you're dealing with the human factor. Many are called, few are chosen. Everybody's not. You can't save everybody.
Right. Right. So I actually learned that when I was teaching, when I was an educator, because in the beginning of my career, I guess I did have a little bit of a God complex because it was like, how could you not? I have been through what you're going through. I have all the answers. Just take them from me. Don't make the same mistakes, whatever. And when the teenagers would make the same mistakes and not listen to my advice, I would take it personally. And I would get really upset. Like, how could you? I told you if you did that, this is the consequence, because at the time I was teaching a life skills class. It was called Freshman Focus, but it was a life skills class and it was overcoming obstacles. And I had all the answers because I had overcome obstacles, right? Not all of them, but they wouldn't listen to me. But then the beauty of being in education is the ones that, even though they didn't listen to you in that moment, and the beauty of social media is they can find you 20, 30 years later. And they say, I remember that one thing. And it took me 15, 20, 30 years to actually hear what you were saying, but it never left. So the reason why I use that story is because we don't know when things are going to hit people, when they're not going to hit people, but we do know how to keep our energy intact. And so we give our gift. We give it without taking it personally, how they receive it. We just give it. How they receive it is up to them. What they do with it is up to them. Maybe they come back in a couple of years and say thank you. Maybe they don't. Maybe they actually did listen and they never come back and say thank you. We can't be attached to any of their outcomes. That's a whole attachment conversation we can have. But essentially, you can't be attached to what you give. You just give because you're giving, because the act of giving feels good. But you also remember if you attach to it, you're giving yourself away instead of just giving your gift away.
Wow, such great information on this episode. Make sure you guys go back and watch part one of Stephanie's journey from here to here. Stephanie, what should the viewers get out of this episode with you? I mean, you did a part one that was truly phenomenal. Part two, what should the viewers get out of this? What message are you trying to give to them?
Awareness is only step one. You have to put awareness into action, and you have to be strong and committed to your self growth and your journey in order to really make a difference, not just for yourself, but for the people around you.
How can the viewers reach out to you, get your book, follow you on social media and your podcast?
Primalhearthealing.com. You can find all the spaces to go to get to me, get to my book, get to the podcast. Primalhearthealing.com. If you want to just go right to the podcast, it's Quantum Coffee. I do believe it's on all platforms, but YouTube for sure. So primalhearthealing.com and Quantum Coffee Podcast.
Stephanie, thank you so much for taking time out to come on and do the show. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you click that button. All it takes is one click to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. This has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.